welcome back to another Inside Texas live show. It's the What You Got to Know About Texas versus Sam Houston State, joined once again by Pack Up here on the top right and Mr. Ben Sorrells. He's here to talk some Bearcat football. Did I butcher the last name, Ben? Did I say that okay?
It's Sorrels, but it's honestly
God.
50-50. Half say Sorrels, half say Sorrels, so I don't blame you.
You know what I was going to ask, and I was like, you know what, we're gonna rip it and see if we can get it right. Anyways, Ben, thank you for being here with us. I was told that you are the most knowledgeable Bearcat representative out there. You come highly recommended, so thank you for spending some time with us. And just before we get to Mr. Ben and him talking some Bearcats, I'm gonna tell you guys what you can do real quick, and that's hop on over to InsideTexas.com. You can subscribe for the top spot for Texas Longhorn recruiting news, in-depth analysis. And the cool thing is you can join right now for just $1 and get a full year to The Athletic. A banger of a deal. Jump on that, subscribe to Inside Texas. And now it is time for Mr. Ben. Phil Longo. I'm a big fan of Phil Longo back in the days at Ole Miss. I used to go to some Texas high school football coaching clinics. Pack's probably been to a few of those. And
Yeah.
Phil was a guy that I always tried to find because I was a big spread offense guy. And so immediately when I hear Sam Houston State is being led by Phil Longo, I love it. Talk to us about the Bearcats, Ben. Not the start they probably would have wanted down there, but what are you seeing out of the Cats, man?
Yeah, starting with Phil Longo, brand new head coach this year after Casey Keeler was here for about a decade. And Casey Keeler's first offensive coordinator was Phil Longo from 2014 to 2016. So some familiarity with the program before he went off to North Carolina, Ole Miss, Wisconsin, and eventually made his way back. Like you mentioned, probably not the start you wanted this season, but probably the start a lot of people assumed you would have. Pretty rough schedule out of the gate at WKU. Week 0, UNLV, tough game. Then you got to go to the islands and play at Hawaii. That's always a tough trip. So lost a lot of productivity off of last year's roster, brand new staff. And on the productivity side, you lost your top 16 tacklers on the defensive side of the ball, which is pretty notable for a defense that was top 20 in scoring defense last year. So a lot of turnover, not the start you were looking for. Obviously, Texas is going to be a very difficult game, but hopefully you can get out of it healthy. And then you got Conference USA play starting right after that.
And absolutely, it's a good point, man. You know, these types of games we talked a little bit before. You know, you want to come out healthy. Both sides are rooting for that. Of course, there's things that you want to work on, and then you have to, if you're Sam Houston State, you know, you toe that line of it's like, hey, we have a kind of an opening in this game. You know, let's go for that. But you mentioned the tough schedule to start. And it's not just tough by opponents, but yeah, by travel, man. Like y'all putting in some mega miles there. And that's not easy on any college football program, especially a team that's doing a lot of turnover. But again, early on, you know, like you said, it's to be expected. When I think Sam Houston State football, man, you know, I think gritty, I think tough-minded, especially on the defensive side. You talked about Keeler. What kind of vision do you think Phil Longo has for this Bearcat team in the future?
Yeah, I think it starts on the offensive side of the ball. We maybe haven't seen it as much as he would have liked to this year, but he's calling the plays. He's known for his air raid spread offense. So ideally, you might not see it as much this year, but it's a team that's going to score a lot of points like they did, or like he did during his first stint here and at many other stints. And then I think just trying to find an identity defensively is a big question and something they're still trying to figure out with the brand new staff and a completely new starting defense. So the identity just going forward is you want to get into that air raid philosophy where you're putting up 30, 40 points a game like you have in the past, and then hopefully set some sort of identity defensively to where you can keep up, because that was a big question that a lot of people had. So that's kind of the vision with Longo. Obviously, a lot of it's still going into place. 55 new guys, including 33 new players that got here in June. So still trying to lay that foundation and see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And you're gonna score some points, man. That's Phil Longo football. I think you've done a pretty decent job of moving the football early in the year, considering this again the opponents that you played. I like, you know, the concepts and what it will make Texas do. Again, we got a pretty big air raid matchup coming up here soon. Not that Sam Houston State has gone full air raid, but educate us on you know, the Bearcats. Give me a couple of offensive players that you know, by the 7:30 on Saturday, Texas fans rather, you know, might hear their name called a few times, and then a couple on the defensive side of the ball as well, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so starting on the offensive side, Hunter Watson is the name to watch. Was your starter last year. Came back, one of the few remaining starters from last year. Missed the Hawaii game with injury due to a shoulder sprain, but he's back. He'll be ready to go. Sounds like he's going to be the starter at Texas. So You got to know him. You also need to know Elijah Green, a guy who's been in Phil Longo's system when he was at North Carolina a few years ago, has had a really good start to the season. He's one to know. Also in the backfield, Alton McCaskill, a name a lot of people know from his time at Houston a few years ago. He had a great first game, has missed the last 2 games due to injury. Sounds like he'll be questionable coming into this one. And then a guy at the receiver position in the receiver room hasn't gotten extremely involved to this point this year, and that's something they kind of want to work on is Quavez Humphreys, a guy who had a big season for you last year. Your biggest, most athletic wide receiver there on the outside. So if you're looking for names to know, there's a few of them there. On the defensive side, a lot of new faces for Sam Houston, but 2 of them have really emerged so far. The first one is Jamar Diaz. He's a transfer from D2 Glenville State. He plays that kind of edge role, can drop back in coverage a little bit. They play the 3-3-5. He'll line up at linebacker on the edge, do a little bit of everything. Has been super disruptive. And then Iman Allen is probably the other one. He was your third corner last year and played a decent amount. He's probably your top returning player from last year. And so he's one to know at corner. He's had 2 interceptions, including a pick 6 this year, has been really good in coverage, has really developed as a player and as a person this year. So those are some names on each side of the ball to look out for.
Love it, man. You talked about McCaskill at Houston. You just mentioned Conference USA play coming up, him being questionable. You can understand that they maybe, wait to break him out in conference play. Pack, have you looked at Phil Longo and the Bearcats much, and what makes this scheme that Phil Longo's had for such a long time, what makes it difficult to defend?
Yeah, I think it starts with all of the air raid stuff. Just in general, it's a hard thing to defend because of the way that they're going to use wide splits. They're going to force your corners into one-on-ones. They're going to give wide receivers option routes, so you're not going to always know what you're getting run against. And especially if you're trying to get into like pseudo double moves where you're seeing a hitch 3 consecutive routes, well, the next one might be a go. So you end up throwing cornerbacks off. They're not always going to know what they're getting. And then like a lot of air raid systems, you're getting lighter boxes. So you're having to fit the run from a light box. You have to figure out ways to cancel gaps, or your linebackers have to do a good job of reading their keys. So it's putting a lot of people in conflict. It's trying to make the offense simple for quarterbacks. So you're not going to see a ton of balls being thrown into triple coverage or double coverage because the idea is let's make everything easy on the quarterback. It's normally half field reads, get the ball out quick, let your wide receivers make plays in space. So I think they do a really good job in general. The air raid does a really good job of isolating turnovers and allowing your quarterback to play a bit more free and be a little bit less turnover prone. And that's going to be something that, again, Steve Sarkisian's talked a lot about how he wants the defense to continue to generate turnovers. So that's one of those things where this might be a good challenge for Texas just to try to see, can they do that against a system that may be built around not turning the ball over.
Oh, really well said. How about you, Ben? Anything that Pack might have missed there on Phil Longo, his on offense, and what he's trying to do?
Yeah, just to hit on a few things. I know we mentioned the light box, and that's something that with Hunter Watson in there for about the quarter and a half he's played this year has kind of played to their advantage. Watson is a guy that's more known for his legs, but they do want to spread the ball out. And I know against Western Kentucky there were 2 different plays where they didn't have a spy on him just because they're accounting for the guys on the outside. And one of them resulted in a 55-yard touchdown run for Watson. So it definitely does pose challenges for defense, especially when Hunter's able to throw the ball accurately, which he's up and down with, but his legs are a real weapon, and he's shown it within this offense.
Yeah, really well said. And that's why I made the comment earlier that they haven't gone full air raid yet, just because I feel like he is going to be a little bit run first at times. Down the line, I feel like, Longo turns this thing into a machine. I mean, I'm a fan of Phil Longo and the talent that he's going to have access to at Sam. And in the past, like I said, a little more defensive minded, and I'm excited to see my guy Phil Longo back in the state of Texas and see what he does. But talk about conference play, man. Where do you see the Cats kind of stacking up in conference? Is there any big games that you think will be key and pivotal to their success and in their end result?
Yeah, so you've got Texas, and then you've got another bye week, and then you go right into it against New Mexico State. And I think it's just a conference season where you've got to find a way to pluck a few wins. Obviously, the expectations weren't super high, but you kind of do want to elevate yourself above those New Mexico States, above the FIUs. You've beaten Louisiana Tech the last 2 years. Can you continue to do that? So I think you just got to find a way to stay afloat with how much turnover there has been this year. That's really the biggest thing. And if they could pick up 2, 3, 4 wins, I think it's a big success for them, and they could kind of go from there. 2 years ago, you started the year 0-8, and then you won 3 of your last 4. You're probably going to start 0-4 this year. If you can find a way to win 3 or 4 of your last 8 and carry that momentum into next year with the full offseason, I think you got to feel pretty good about yourself.
Absolutely, man. And again, I think there's going to be some games that Sam Houston State is really in. And, this is inside Texas, and we see the impact of the transfer portal amongst the SEC and what it can do to a roster positively or negatively, either or. And that obviously has that ripple effect, whether it's the Big 12, the Conference USA, the Big 10, it doesn't matter. And so there are a lot of question marks about a lot of these teams in the conference. And you don't know exactly what you're going to get in the spot, but I think Sam's going to be in some tight ball games. And you want to find that momentum towards the end of the year. You get Jacksonville State at home, I believe. That's a fun one. I know you go to Corvallis, but
Yep.
I think there's going to be some really, really good ball games in there. If you had to make a prediction, do you feel like they get those 3 or 4?
I think it's probably 2 or 3. I think the conference is probably slightly more elevated than it was last year. FIU, I mean, they just beat FAU pretty handily at home. Louisiana Tech looks better than they have been the last 2 years. Jack State looks to possibly be maintaining what they were from last year, maybe not to that degree. So the conference is a little bit better, but I think you still got a couple wins out there, especially with teams like Delaware, New Mexico State. Then you could probably pick up one other. And then, like you mentioned with the transfer portal, an interesting Sam Houston, Texas connection. Woodard, Alvante Woodard was at Texas for a few years, and he was really good for us during our first year in Conference USA. So a little Texas Sam Houston connection there.
There you go, man. One of the wide receivers that Tom Herman brought over in a pretty heralded wide receiver class. It didn't pan out the way we might have hoped, but love that Alvante found a home and did tear it up. Pac, when you see Phil Longo in this offense, what do you think? And we know traditionally what PK is going to get out there and do. He doesn't hide too much from you. But how do you think Texas defends this edition of the Phil Longo's offense on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it is just kind of what PK does. Show too high, roll into some form of cover 3, whether that's Ripley's cover 3 where we're matching with our slot players, or just the country version where it's all vision on the quarterback. I don't think PK is going to change much. He kind of does what he wants to do. The only 2 times he hasn't done that has been Ohio State, and we kind of know why there. So I think you're going to get the same as you always kind of see. A lot of cover 3, some cover 1 when they're blitzing 5 or 6, when they're sending pressures. Maybe some Tampa 2 on 3rd down, and when they're in their dime package, you might see some quarters sprinkled in there from time to time just as a change up. But for the most part, it's kind of, you see what you get is what you see with PK.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you don't want to show, Ben Arbuckle, John Mateer, in Oklahoma too much, even Florida before that. But more of this more similar system to the air raid that Oklahoma does is what Texas is seeing this weekend. Anybody defensively that you anticipate with what you've seen so far to have a really big opportunity for a big game?
See, the last time I did this, I said Manny Muhammad, Michael Taff, and Colin Simmons, and I think I went 0 for 3. So I'm gonna try to be a little bit more conservative here, and I'll just go with Leona Lafau and then Anthony Hill, just because, like Ben had mentioned, with the legs, you might need to, especially when you're in cover 3 and you've got vision off the quarterback with your 2 linebackers, making sure that you're playing with good eye discipline, and that when their quarterback starts to scramble, you're not starting to leave your zone and leaving someone behind you, all that stuff. Just playing with good eye discipline as linebackers, doing a good job fitting the run, especially knowing that you're not going to have your nickels coming in late to help you fit, knowing that you don't have a safety coming in over the top to help you fit late. So those are the 2 guys that I'm expecting to have big games, and you almost need to have good games because you want to see them be able to fit the run, especially because in 2 weeks, Florida's probably going to have to run the ball, knowing what DJ Lagway's put out there when he's throwing the ball.
Yeah, well said, man. Those 2 guys, I feel really confidently having good games. I mean, you know what to expect, especially out of Leona this year. I mean, a very big. I thought he made a big jump last year, middle of the season, especially obviously once he got on and became the starter there. But been very, very impressed with him. You could argue that he has been the best backer in that room so far, and that's not a knock on anybody because you've seen a lot of guys play some pretty dang good football there. All right, real quick, we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, Laura Baker, and then we're going to get Ben's opinion on Texas and what's going on with the Horns.
If you're looking for a home in the Austin area, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. Laura's a part of the elite Andy Allen team at Keller Williams Realty. She's helped Longhorns find their dream homes all over Central Texas. You can just ask our very own Ian Boyd, who moved from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Whether you're searching in Austin, Round Rock, Georgetown, San Marcos, or even parts of the 254 or the 210, Laura has you covered. So call 512-784-0505, or you can email her at laura@andyallenteam.com. She's a Longhorn, a friend of Inside Texas, and the person you need to call to get your next home in Central Texas. Call Laura Baker today. Contact info is in the description.
There you go, Pac. As soon as you're out of school, you got Laura Baker on the line. You get you a nice little South Austin, North or West Austin, wherever you want, man. It's all pretty. All right, Ben. There's been a lot of talk about Texas. Obviously, there's always a lot of talk about Texas. But when the offense has the expectations that it has pretty significantly failed to meet so far, there's even more talk about Texas. Arch Manning, what do you see? What do you see as the main bugaboo for not just him, but for the Texas offense? Is it Arch Manning? Is it go deeper than that? Just kind of your overall thoughts on what you've seen out of Texas through 3 ball games.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I watch a lot of Sam Houston, a little bit of Texas because they're in the national spotlight all the time. But yeah, Arch just, I don't know, just doesn't look 100% comfortable to me. I mean, you saw him against ULM, and I think there were 1 or 2 other games last year, and just kind of looks like he's regressed a little bit, maybe a little bit too much pressure on him. So I think you just got to find ways to make him comfortable, get easy reads, make easy completions. And you saw a little bit of that, I think, against San Jose State in that first half, and it might be more of a get right week again for Arch this week. Probably that's what Texas fans are hoping for, and probably what I'm expecting as well. So yeah, I just think he's got to get comfortable, got to get reps under him. It's hard for a guy to come in and be a starting quarterback at Texas with all that pressure. I know he's got a lot of hype behind him and a lot of talent, but you still got to have reps, and I think that's part of it that not a lot of people recognize and are naive to. So those are just some of my initial thoughts. I think he'll be fine long term, and this is probably a week where he can probably start to find a groove and kind of go from there.
Yeah, we hope so, man, because, wow, it's been rough. You know, last week it was really just a dreadful second quarter, but it was bad enough to, man, it can really, you know, it outweighs some of the good that he did have in that football game. To me, you know, it looks sped up. I think Pac is of similar mind, and I'll let you get into it in a minute, Pac. But to me, he seems to be progressing or just processing way too quickly, everything in front of him, flying through reads. And I think part of it might be that he's like, and I said this yesterday on Inside Texas, one of the forums on Joe Cook's piece. But to me, it seems like he almost was trying to stay in the pocket long enough. He flies through his progressions. He checks it off mentally. Okay, I went through everything, and now I can bounce. And like you said, he doesn't look very comfortable. Body clock is off. Footwork suffers because of it. And obviously his throwing mechanics are broken down. Pac, tell us why it'll be different, or tell us why it might not be different.
Yeah, so I thought in the second half against UTEP, I thought it looked better. I thought he did a better job of getting through his reads and being a bit more patient with them, letting plays develop. A specific play that comes to mind for me is that mesh Z spot where he hit Ryan Wingo over the middle on a 3rd down, I believe. That was his 3rd read. That's stuff that I like to see, especially because I saw him marry his footwork to his eyes. So when he's looking to 1, his eyes and feet are there. Looking to 2, eyes and feet are at 2. And then getting to 3, which was the spot route from Wingo. His eyes were there, his feet were there. That's some encouraging stuff. I thought in the second half, he was more patient in the pocket. He was more patient in terms of what he was looking at. He wasn't so eager to get to his check down or to scramble. I thought he was a bit more patient. So that's one encouraging sign. In general, I thought in the second half, to me, it was a lot more about just the mechanical breakdowns that he had from an upper body standpoint, where your elbow's caving in and you're underneath the ball now. You're leaning on your side, and now you're throwing almost sidearm. That was the stuff to me that was more of the fixable stuff. And I think part of that just comes from not being comfortable. And I think if Texas can get Arch comfortable early in the game, whether that's with quick game, screens, getting a good run game, letting him get into some easier play concepts, I think you'll start to see some of those issues start to dissipate. To me, a lot of this just comes down to, I think he's pressing. I think he's trying not to make a mistake, and everything's now becoming a bit too fast for him because he's trying not to make a mistake and because he has all of this external pressure on him. So I think once you get rid of all of that, once you just get him settled in, you get him a drive early, hopefully, where everything looks good. He feels confident. The concepts are working for him. I think you'll start to see some real progress, and you'll start to see that improvement that we seem to be hearing about in practice.
And that's the thing that I think is most confusing for a lot of people is I get asked a question all the time, like, how does Sark put him out there if he looks like this in practice all the time? He doesn't look like this in practice. And that's the confusing part. That is where you're just hoping and waiting for it to turn. And the yips are a real thing. Like, I don't care. I mean, I've got them on the golf course all the time, not the football field, but it can turn like that, man. And so obviously we're rooting for that. If I'm Texas, I think what you said is you spam the quick stuff, man, early on. You get you get him comfortable early on. I mean, Ben, how do you think Sam Houston State defends Texas? We see 3 high safety looks for the last 3 or 4 years because we haven't proven that we can consistently move the ball and sustain drives and then finish in the red zone. Do we see more out of that from the Bearcats this Saturday?
Yeah, I think you do, especially with the 3-3-5 kind of defense that they like to run a lot of. And just to hit on some other points that y'all mentioned, I think he's going to have plenty of time to throw. It's a defense that's going to rush 3 just because they don't have enough depth to put anybody else out there. I mean, your edge guys have been playing 50-plus snaps per game, and they haven't gotten a lot of pressure. And so you've got those 3 safeties in the back. You're playing the 3-3-5, and you're getting no pressure, and those guys just have not been able to hold up. So I think Arch is going to have plenty of time to throw. He's going to be able to get to his different reads that he needs to get to. So I'm probably expecting a big game from him just because he's going to have a clean pocket. He's going to have time to throw, and guys are just going to come open because you're rushing 3 and you have not gotten home with 3 to this point. You probably aren't going to against Texas.
And I will say, in defense of our offensive line, who's struggled kind of mightily in the ground game department, they've done a really good job keeping pockets remotely clean for I almost said Quinn Ewers, for Arch Manning. It was a long ride we had with all 3. But, yeah, I mean, to me, I think they've been above expectations in the pass blocking department. And obviously they have, yet to reach them in the pass blocking department. For you, is it just all Arch, or do you see more? Do you see, because I mean, we're replacing a lot the skill position. We running back room is banged up. Do you see Texas turning the corner? I guess is what I'm really asking you.
I think they do. Yeah, I mean, this is a defense for us that's given up right at 40 points pretty much every game, and there's really nothing they can hang their hat on it at any position. So I think they do. Ultimately, they get back to kind of what they looked like in that first half against San Jose State. And so I don't expect a lot from our defense this week, but we'll see how it plays out. You mentioned the run game. We have been decent at stopping the run. I think they allowed 3.1 yards per rush against WKU and held up pretty well there. They did decent against Hawaii also, so maybe they have some success there, but not a ton of optimism on my end when it comes to the Sam Houston defense. Like I said, a defense replacing its top 16 tacklers from last season.
Well, I mean, I don't want to sound like rude in this spot, but I mean, as far as past the Sam Houston State game, what do you expect out of Arch? Do you think like, oh yeah, this is a guy that at some point he's going to figure it out? Or are you kind of like some others where it's like, we have no idea what to expect from 16 on any Saturday?
Yeah, I think he figures it out. Ultimately, like I said, it takes time. It takes reps. Things have got to slow down, like Pac said, and I think that just comes with the reps. And I think things probably will slow down against Sam Houston. I mean, UTEP is in the same conference as us, but they are kind of light years ahead of where our defense is. So this is not even that defense. It's not even San Jose State's defense. So slow things down against us, and then you can find a rhythm and pick it back up going forward against Oklahoma and Florida in the next couple of weeks.
I'm glad to hear it. I believe it. Still want to see it. Need to see what type of, again, maybe cutting down on a few concepts, doing what we've done well and sticking with that. All right, Pac, when it comes to, do you think Texas can cover? I hate to ask it just direct, but do you think this is a game where Texas for the first time gets anywhere close to covering a point spread?
I got to find what the spread is really quick.
I think
Is
it's
it 40?
39.5.
30.
Okay.
It
That's what I
we've
saw.
got bet down from 41.5 to 39.5, if I'm not mistaken. It opened to 41 or 41.5. So
I want to say yes, but it's kind of like I thought they would cover the last 2 weeks, and I don't think they covered either week. I'll say yes just because I do think this is a get right game for the entire offense. I think you'll see a better performance from Arch. I think you'll see the receivers on the same page. I think the run game will look better. So I'll say yes, but very, very be careful there.
Yeah, it's right up against the number.
Yeah.
I predicted 48-7, which when it started at like 41.5, you're on the other side of it. So I think it's going to be close.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you saw my prediction today, Ben. It was talked about a little bit.
Was it
I don't
9-4? Was that you?
Sometimes you just gotta have a good time when you're not feeling so great, man. And this offense, it's time for them to score some football points. This is in my opinion, I don't mean this in a rude way, Sam Houston State's gonna have much better teams than this one very soon under Phil Longo, and they're experiencing some growing pains. So whatever Texas does in this game, I'm still not going to say, oh yes, that corner has been rounded. We go to Gainesville in a couple of weeks. That is going to be a true test for Texas, and you turn around if you either way you get through that one successfully or not, you get a pretty salty little Oklahoma team coming to the Cotton Bowl for Red River. Any other points or comments, questions you might have, Ben, before we get you out of here to let you enjoy your Thursday evening?
Yeah, not a ton. I know we didn't hit on special teams. That's another area where Sam Houston has a completely new look. Curtis Duran, first year Aussie punter, he's done really well to start with. It's got a lot of work so far, and then RJ Lopez is your new kicker, transfer from Nebraska and UCLA, kicked at both of those places. He's struggled quite a bit, so if they're not within probably the 20-yard line, they might be going for it. So those are really the only other things I have. Special teams is still kind of a question mark for us also, but I think we covered most of it.
Special teams, man, we feel good about it, which after last year, hey, it's like offense is struggling, but in the other two phases of the game, we're pretty happy right now. It could be a lot worse. Ben, we'll let you get out of here, man. Thanks a lot for joining us. For you guys who don't see it or can't see it down there, it's Sports of SHSU. Check them out on Twitter. Again, it came very highly recommended. Obviously has pretty great treasure trove of ball knowledge regarding the old Bearcats. Best of luck to y'all, man, and old Conference USA, brother.
Yeah, appreciate y'all having me.
Of course, anytime we'll get you back on here in the future. You have a good evening, brother.
Yeah, appreciate.
Cut him out. All right, Pack. We're going to hear a word from our sponsor, Dave McClellan, and then you and I are going to get into some nitty gritty about the Longhorns, what we need to see Saturday and going down the line.
Big financial decisions don't have to feel overwhelming. There's someone who can guide you every step of the way. David McClellan is a fiduciary financial advisor with Forum Financial, and he's working closely with his clients as a true financial life coach, guiding every aspect of your financial journey with expertise and care. If his name sounds familiar, that's because David was a swimmer at Texas and a member of several national championship teams. Today, he channels that same championship mindset into helping people win with their finances. David specializes in financial planning, and he's contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. And right now, David is offering viewers a free intro consultation to assess your financial situation. Do not miss this chance to get personalized guidance from a trusted expert. To schedule your free consult, email David at dmcclellan@forumfinancial.com, or you can call him directly at 312-933-8823. The contact info is in the description.
Swimmer at the University of Texas at David McClellan. Pack, have you ever been engaged in competitive swimming? Was that ever your thing?
No, I tried it when I was 8. Was not good. I can swim, not very fast.
I mean, I feel like I'm slightly above average athlete, just slightly. I don't think I could swim 20, 30 meters without, pulling a hamstring or just losing my breath, dude. That's impressive. So shout out to David for that. You're swimming at the University of Texas. You're pretty decent athlete there. All right, Pack. This again, we just said whatever happens this weekend, man, ultimately it's going to mean very little. We want to stay healthy, but again, you don't want to see our struggle, obviously. Do you think, that is a game plan? Do we see a lot more Texas? I know we talked about what we'd like to see, but do you think that is what Sarkisian does? Last week, a little more emphasis on the ground game. We saw a ton of different running backs. And so I'm going to ask you what you think your plan is, and then I've got a question for you about the backs.
Yeah, I think you do see a little bit more emphasis on the pass game, not only just because Trey Wisner and CJ Baxter are out, but also because I think you really have to get Arch comfortable and settled in now, especially because you're going to Gainesville and you're going to face a really, really good defense led by Ron Roberts, who's going to throw a lot of different stuff at you. He's going to play some split field. He's going to throw you Tampa 2. He's going to show you a bunch of different stuff. And then the next week, you're going to face Brent Venables, who all he does is just throw chaos at you and make you see things that you just don't see very often. So you need to be able to have a good game here from Arch, because if you don't play well against Sam Houston and then you go face two really good defensive coordinators and those don't go well, you could shatter a kid's confidence, and you can't get that back. So you really need to start seeing you need to get some growth from Arch. You need to get some confidence instilled in him, and you need to just see the offense start to click, because you're facing two really good teams and two really good defenses once you start SEC play.
And neither ball games at home. I mean, you're talking about, you do have a bye week between now and Florida that you can get some reps in. But again, man, like, you do have to get this kid some confidence. I think that's got to be the point of emphasis. Get him involved, even if it's with his feet, even a couple times. I know it's Sam Houston State, but his feet have to be a part of the offense. Maybe it is a part of unlocking whatever the heck is going on with Arch Manning right now. Would like to see more jack injuries underneath. I would like to see more underneath overall, and so I think, again, we're going to see a 3-high safety look. We're going to be the way more athletic team on the outside. If we can't complete routes here, if, we're going to have all day to throw, I'm not saying it's air, but I mean, this is going to be the worst defense that Texas plays all year. And again, huge fan of the Sam Houston State program. They've been very proud, but this is a growing pain year. And Phil Longo, I believe he'll get it right down the line. But you've got to be able to move the football. You got to go. Can we get points on a first drive pack? Can we? I mean, I would do some crazy things. I'd probably save those crazy things for the Florida or Oklahoma game for a first drive touchdown. But with the early struggles, do you see it as Sark talks about poking and prodding? But man, we go back to year 2021. Texas scored on the first drive very often. Very aggressive, even at times with Quinn Ewers. What are your thoughts on the opening series struggles? And are you okay with what Sark is doing if he is poking and prodding, or would you change anything?
I think you got to be more explosive early. I understand the poking and prodding thing. I think it makes a lot of sense, right? It helps you set up future drives when a team is going to respond to a certain formation with a certain coverage. You can get into what personnel groups they're looking at and all these different things. But I think for the sake of the offense, you just got to be explosive early, get the crowd into it, show that, we're making real strides. Otherwise, you get another 3 and out your first drive, or you go 3 first downs and you punt it. It's not exactly going to get the crowd into it. It's going to keep bringing that negative kind of energy around the offense. And that's the last thing you need. And then I just briefly want to touch on something about Sam Houston's defense. I think it's a really good test for them, for Texas, because they're going to go face the 3-3-5 in all likelihood in Red River. Last year, that's what Venables did. He was running 3 high, and he was either getting into 3 double buzz, or he was getting into Tampa 2, all these different things. And you're going to see that a lot in 3 weeks. So you're going to want to have some level of comfort in knowing that, okay, Arch is comfortable against 3 high, Sark is comfortable calling against 3 high, and we'll be able to feel comfortable against that. Because, again, if you struggle against 3 high against Sam Houston, you're going to face an even better version of it in 3 weeks, and that's not exactly good prospects.
I agree with you, man. And Texas, I think at times, they need to be able to show that they can run the football for 7, 8, 10 yards of carry against a 3-man front. And, they're going to slant and they'll stunt and they'll do different things. But, it's the same Houston State. You got to show some progress on the run game at times. But, again, it's important to get Arch going. I would like to see, I know DeAndre Moore is going to be out on the field. Let's get Demo involved. Let's get everybody involved. Let's just sustain some football drives, man. No penalties, no just complete whiffs on the offensive line. We saw a couple of, bloopers almost. For me, in the backfield, I really like seeing James Simon last week. I thought he had a little bit better burst. Vision was pretty good. Set up a couple of runs very well, a little better than I anticipated at times, and I had to go back and watch a few times to realize, hey, that kid is okay. Got some juice there. What were your thoughts on the running back room? What would you like to see this Saturday, Pack?
Yeah, I thought James Simon had a good game. I really liked what I saw from Jarrett Gibson when he was holding on to the football. Again, that feels like the main thing with him is if he can hold on to the football, he's a good back for you. I thought he played well on Saturday. Same thing with James Simon. With Christian Clark, it's just you got to trust your blockers a bit more. You can't play so much freelancing. But I thought that the running back room played fine. I didn't think they did a great job blocking any of the zone schemes. I really didn't think they did a good job with outside zone. I thought that was a real struggle. I thought that they did a good job blocking counter, duo, and power. Those were stuff that I think you could see a lot more of heading into SEC play and something that I'd like to see more of. I think it naturally suits some of our backs anyway. Obviously, CJ Baxter ran a lot of gap scheme in high school. I think Trey Wisner's got a good ability to do it. So I think that's kind of one thing to look at is what does the gap scheme versus zone scheme look like in terms of splits and how is the O-line blocking it? Because, the run game is more so about your offensive line than even your running backs. And that's been kind of an up and down thing where, like you said, a lot of whiffs on tape, not always playing with great leverage, not always using your hands or striking properly. So those are things that you kind of want to watch for. And again, you want to see improvement on.
Well said, brother. I mean, and you have to mix zone and the gap schemes because you can't just have the tight end leading you to the play or the H-back when he's back there every single snap, you know what I mean? And, last year Texas counters all the 3-man fronts and the slanting and the stunting, and that's why they tried to implement our outside zone. And obviously, that line blocked it a little better than they blocked inside zone. But yeah, if you remove Matthew Caldwell, his 14-yard scamper at the tail end of that game, Texas ran over 20 attempts on outside zone for just a little over 3 yards a clip. Got to be better there, man. Again, zone blocking is worse than gap schemes, and it's pretty noticeable. But again, you've got to rep it, continue to work it. It's going to be a part of Steve Sarkisian's offense. So if you were Sark, knowing that Trey Wisner's not going to be out there, how does that running back split look like to you as far as carries?
Yeah, I think you start with Gibson just because he's the oldest in the room. He's the guy that has the most reps. He should be the most advanced in pass protection, so you can leave him in on pass game knowing that he's going to do his job as a blocker. Then I would go with James Simon. I really liked what I saw on Saturday. I thought he did a good job reading his blocks, trusting his blocks, hitting the right gaps. And then I'd go with Christian Clark again, give him some touches, get his feet wet, slowly get him more and more comfortable reading blocks and being ready and all of that stuff. But that would kind of be how I split it. I'd like to get them a lot of carries, all of them, just because we talk about this all the time, having winnable depth, especially when you have Trey Wisner, who's been banged up, CJ Baxter's got a hamstring issue. You never know if they're going to go down during SEC play, and you might have to play one of them in extended minutes. So I like to see all of them get carries and kind of let the cream of the crop rise.
I think it's well said, man. And I think it's important to be, somewhat situational about it. Christian Clark struggled on, some lead plays and counters last week where, like you said, a little bit too freelancy, a little bit, bouncing outside like you would maybe in a high school game out in Arizona. You can get free. Not going to work here, man. You got to follow blockers, got to take advantage of every yard that our offensive line and others are blocking for you and opening up. You got to max it out, man, and then make something happen if you're able to. But for me, if we want to see more of James Simon as a pass blocker, let's roll him out there a little bit more on third down and passing situations. If we want to get Christian Clark involved in the passing game, I don't want anyone to be able to look at Texas and say, okay, when James Simon's in the game, it's 75%, run, because I think he's going to be a part of this offense. And as you said, you got two really good defensive coordinators coming up. And so no time like the present, man. Get everybody a little bit of reps. Everybody reps in different circumstances and situations. And let's see who's ready, to maybe take over a reign or just demand a little bit more time. But for me, I was, again, really impressed with James Simon. Not disappointed in Christian Clark, but, man, that's my guy. And I was really that one that one lead or counter right behind Jack Andrews where he just bounces out to the left towards the hash. We did a good job blocking that play, and Andrews was in the hole, easy 7-8 yards, and I think we picked up 2 or 3. But I've forgiven you, Christian. We're moving on. All right, Pac, tell me who's going to be, we do the game ball. So we got to have a game ball offensively, defensively. Let's do offense first. Good luck.
This is the game that Arch turns around. I'm going to give it to Arch Manning for the offensive game ball. Defensive game ball, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to be fairly conservative and go with LaFau. I think that's probably a pretty good guess.
Well, that's the thing. It's like you pick a player on the defense and you're safe. But when I'm over here saying, like Ryan Wingo's going to have a breakout game of 125 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then a week 2, and he does far from that, I look dumb. So offense makes it a little bit harder. Arch, man, give me a predicted stat line. Stick your neck out there a little bit on all Arch being your player of the game.
Go something like 22 of 30 for 315 and 4 touchdowns.
Dude, you're in my head. I was going to say 23 of 30. And you say 415?
No.
I was like, God.
315.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go 323. And I think 3-4 touchdowns, maybe even another one, give him a handful. But you got to see it, man. And if you don't do it this week, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't believe, because obviously you're going to save a lot for Florida, for Oklahoma. You're not going to get out there and just maybe some of your bread and butter, some of your stuff you've been waiting to see to show, things you've been saving. You're probably not going to see that. So it'll be mostly vanilla and just relying on athletes to out athlete, inferior athletes at Old Sam Houston State. And that's not a knock on them, man. Again, I love Phil Longo as a head coach. Was really excited when he got that job. For me, offensively, I'm going Arch Manning. I can't have that stat line and not give the guy my game ball, or predicted game ball, that is. On the defensive side of the ball, let's go Jordan Johnson-Rubel, a guy that I'm going to say has a turnover in this game, or has an interception in this game. I love that young man's work ethic. I think he's maximizing the reps once he gets on the field. Again, it's a very loaded safety room. The reps are tough out there. He maximizes them every time he gets on the field. He's a dog. He is not afraid to come up and smack your ass, man. Big fan of Jordan Johnson. But all right, Pac. So you've got a score prediction in your head. I said I'll give a real one after you give one. I won't be facetious as I was on the timeline today.
I'll go 48-6.
48-6. So you got the horns covering. You also got the over. All right. So
wait, what's the over? Is it really that low?
It's got to be a low 50s, man. If the line's 39.5.
I'm about to check, because that feels.
That's got to be. It's pretty low.
It's 51.5. Yeah. So I've got the over.
I do think this goes over the point total for anybody that might be interested out there. I see some points. I see Texas getting right against an opponent that some other teams this year are going to get right against. We'll score a lot of points. The ground game will look a lot better. But let me tell you, man, if you get in there and you're sloppy and you pick up another half a dozen pre-snap penalties and you have a couple personal foul penalties and little things like that, I mean, like that's going to be concerning. That's what I'm really going to be looking for. Can we be clean in zone blocking in the run game? Pre-snap penalties. I trust this offensive line already in the pass blocking department. I think they do a really good job in protection. But again, the running back rotation, things I'll have my eye on. The defense, I mean, we know what to expect with the defense. Is there anybody in particular that you want to see maybe get a little bit more run, since this is a game where, some of the youth should be able to get on the football field and they haven't been able to get on the football field quite as much as we'd have hoped through 3 weeks?
Yeah, just continue seeing the freshmen out there. I liked what I saw of the limited snaps that Lance Jackson got. You want to see Justice Terry out there too, kind of see how he's doing, getting the young cornerbacks more reps, whether that's Cade Phillips or hopefully Jonah Williams if he's ready to go, Xavier Filsaime, and then obviously JJR. And then you kind of hope to see the linebackers again, Bo Barnes out there, Ty Anthony Smith, get those guys some reps, get them feeling comfortable. But kind of looking forward to see everyone, trying to see what the pass rush looks like again, trying to get Anthony Hill in more spots to rush the passer, whether that's through simulated pressures and we're dropping an edge and we're bringing Anthony Hill, or if we're going to run more 5-man pressures and play cover one, You want to see him be a little bit more disruptive, get involved more in the pass game, because obviously that was something that last year he did really well, and that's what the NFL really likes about him is his versatility, his ability to come off the edge, play as a stack fit linebacker, do all these different things, and I think you want to see a little bit more of that disruptive stuff from Anthony Hill.
And again, that could be something that PK is saving for some of the bigger games on the schedule. Honestly, it's going to be. This is a guy that took Anthony Hill in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, as a freshman, and had a pretty big game plan for that young man. So it is coming. I think we'll get to the disruption from Hill that we're all seeking. I'm going to touch a little bit more on defense, and then I do have a question for you on the offensive side of the ball. Talk to me about Colin Simmons. Do you think, we've heard a lot of positive reports as far as the way that he's practiced this week. He seems to have a slightly different attitude on the social media stuff, and I don't mean that as a slight whatsoever. It just seems like there might be a little bit more focus. Do you expect Colin to break out? If not now, when's it coming, brother?
I think you see him have a good game. I think that it's just him being more comfortable in the system, especially with Leon Clark, who is teaching him how to become a true pass rusher. A lot last year it was, I'm going to win with get off and bend and speed. And this year it's a little bit more, I'm going to win with my hands. I'm going to set up pass rush moves. I think that it's just going to come as the season goes along, when he's refining a little bit more of his technique, when he's a little bit more comfortable playing with his hands, whether that's knowing when you're supposed to rip or when you're going to go with a chop, when are you going to use a ghost move, all these different things. I think it's just the same way it is with Arch, getting more reps, being comfortable with what you're seeing and knowing when to use certain moves, because that's a problem with a lot of young pass rushers, especially ones who are freak athletes like Simmons is. So I think you'll see him have a good game, but I think as the season goes, you'll see that production really ramp up and you'll kind of forget how the season started.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming. It's going to come in a flurry, in my opinion. I don't think it'll be too long at all, Coach. Mr. Charlie Williams saying the biggest thing for Simmons from last year is he's taking more reps. Last year, beat up the guy and then came in and finished. I mean, honestly, yeah, that's a big part of it. And I think as we see this defense and the depth of this defense as we get into the year and get on some of these offensive lines that might not have the depth, and I'm not saying we got a ton of depth on the offensive line, but, that's when you might see, again, Colin Simmons start really, really feasting and sometimes seeming borderline unblockable. You know what I mean? That's a really good point, Charlie. Another really good question that you make here. I wonder, how does the rotation shorten conference play in the trenches on defense? Any thoughts on that, Pack? Do you think it'll be a little bit shorter of a rotation? And who do you think, if it does get shorter, who do we see primarily?
I think it does shorten up just because of some of the injuries and it's having trustable depth. I think you probably keep seeing Cole Brevard out there, Murad Watson, probably Alex January, and then I think, health permitting, Travis Shaw. And then I think you can see some Hero Canoe sprinkled in there, but that to me would be the five that I think you see a lot of. We know that PK and Kenny Baker are going to rotate defensive linemen. They've gone 4 deep the past 2 years. You're probably going to see something like that. It might even be 5 deep just because you don't have a Vernon Broughton or an Alfred Collins or a Tavondre Sweat or a Byron Murphy. So that depth thing just coming at you in waves. So I think you probably still stay 4 or 5 deep at the edge spot. I think it is still probably a 2 deep where you're going, whether that's Colton Bosick or Brad Spence behind Colin Simmons, and then whoever it's going to be behind Ethan Burke, whether that's Zena or they try to move someone there, whether that's Lance Jackson. I think you probably see the rotation probably stay pretty similar just because you have so much depth and you're playing against a lot of really good offensive lines. Florida's got a really good offensive line. Oklahoma isn't great, but you're going to go face Georgia. They've got a good D-line. Arkansas did a good job protecting Taylon Green against Ole Miss. So you're going to face enough offensive lines that just having waves of depth to put at teams is a real strength for you.
Absolutely. And of course you got like a Justice Terry, and I mean, he's got to get more weight. And again, he's learning, getting it acclimated to the system, and just another name that probably gets worked into the fold, but maybe later in the year, not going to be anytime soon, in my opinion. Might see him a little bit tomorrow. Appreciate you watching, Charlie, and being here and dropping in with the questions. Mr. Phil, thanks for being here as well. But yeah, man, I mean, this is a moment where Texas has to have a get right spot. You have to look a lot better. Let's talk about the offensive side of the ball, because that's where it's going to come from. I did a whole rant the other day talking about wanting to see a little bit less 12 personnel. Am I crazy, Pack? Do you think that it just needs more time, maybe a shorter tight end rotation, or just stick with a couple of key concepts and let it ride?
No, I'm with you on the 12 personnel. I've always been of the opinion that if you want to do the play action stuff, do it from 11, because a lot of the time what you end up seeing is you're getting Y cross, or you're getting Y on a deep over. You're getting deeper concepts with your Y, whether that's a dig or a deep over, or you're running a sail concept and he's running a bench route. I think those are just routes that are better run by a receiver, whether that's Parker Livingstone or Ryan Wingo or DeAndre Moore or Dede McCutcheon or any one of those guys. I just think you're more explosive and you have more ability to separate and give Arch people to throw to when you're not in 12 personnel and you're trying to run these 3-man concepts. I think it's easier to defend when you're playing base 12 personnel. So I agree with you. I would rather see 11 personnel. I think also when you're in 11, you can do a lot of different stuff. You're more versatile. You can also force the defense into more compromising positions, because in general, when you're in base and you're playing condensed spreads, a lot of defenses right now are just getting into what's known as like an area call. And they're just going to play country cover 3, and they're going to be able to bring both of their curl flat players, bang them to buzz, meaning they're playing at a 45 until they get into the curls, and then they're dropping off into the flats. So you end up with, they're able to because a lot of times when you're condensing the spread, right? Like you're bringing everything in so that we can spread everything apart. But when teams are playing cover 3 and they're not playing cover 1 and they're mixing and matching and doing all this stuff, you kind of remove some of the benefit of condensing the spread because they have natural answers for it.
Right.
So to me, if you can be an 11 and condense and do all the same stuff and be able to still be pretty creative with how you run the ball. So to me, I would want to see more 11 personnel, especially if you don't have a second tight end who you really trust as an elite blocker. Now, if you want to get into more 6-man protection stuff where you're getting into like the 62, 63 series, which is 6-man protection, half slide, and we're gonna slide away from the tight end and go big on big towards him, that's fine. Play 12. I still think you can do that from 11 and get your 3 wide receivers and a running back flared out. So to me, I want to see more 11 personnel. I think you're more explosive when you're in 11, especially because I don't think you have the tight ends to be able to play 12 personnel and be how Georgia was a couple years when they had Darnell Washington and Brock Bowers, right? Like you don't have a Brock Bowers or a Darnell Washington in the room. And so trying to do that stuff and trying to run routes with Jack Andrews, who's a really good player, and I get it, but trying to do that with an Emery Winston or a Jordan Washington, right now, they're not guys that are going to blow away linebackers or blow away nickels. And so to me, I'd want to see more 11 personnel where I know that DeAndre Moore, I know that Parker Livingstone, I know that Ryan Wingo can beat someone at the point and get open.
Yeah, exactly that, man. I am very big on ditching not all 12 personnel, but a little bit more of it, man. I'd like to see a little more 11 personnel as well. Always my bread and butter. I want to see some empty sets down the line. I really want to spread defenses out, give Arch a little bit more room to operate, some quick stuff. Again, and you're not going to see a lot of that this week. I don't think so. Again, going to hold some back. She got two big, massive ball games coming up. Shoot, they're all massive at this point, man. Got to get a lot better. But, yeah, I think that's well said. I mean, down the line with an Emery Winston, with a Jordan Washington, hey, it might look a little bit different in 12 personnel. But they've got some growing to do. Obviously, like a Nick Townsend, he's even getting reps. And he's probably a little more ready physically. But still, I mean, he's a true freshman in an offense that, he's got a crowded room above him. And an offense is struggling. So you don't really have the opportunity to go out there while blowing opponents out and say, hey, okay, Nick, like these 2 series are yours, these 3 series are yours. And so a lot of learning on the fly here, at least as far as in-game learning and just getting acclimated to the game speed and just how the college game was played, man. I want to see a little bit less of it, and it's not because I don't think it can be a part of your offense. I just don't think this version of Sarkisian's offense with this personnel we have I just don't think it's going to benefit us, to the max. Coach Charlie agrees. More 11 personnel when you have a 3 high. Yeah, I'm with you right there,
just
man.
because of the way that it works, right? Like when I'll take the two like most prime examples of what teams do when they play 3 high, where they start here and then they're going to bring these two down and they'll play 3 buzz to both sides, or they'll play sky to one side, buzz to the other. That's a big drop for someone, right? Like you're having to go down 5 or 6 yards. Those little hitches, those little stop routes, those quick game concepts have real success against 3 high. That's how teams move the ball in general, especially when you're in Tampa 2 now and you're inverting and those two guys are playing back and you get your 2 linebackers having to get work at 45s into their hook curls. Those quick game concepts tend to have a lot more success. And I think you run quick game a lot easier when you have wide receivers out there who can get into those spots a bit quicker. I definitely agree with that, especially from a pass game concept, because the whole thing with the 3 high is you kill space. You take away the deep ball. You get, especially when you're going to play Tampa 2 3 high, you're going to take away the post and you're going to take away a lot of the out route concepts, because you have a lot of the times teams will play with trapping corners. So I agree with Coach there. I think you have to play a little bit more 11 when you're facing 3 high, unless you're just going to brute force it and you're going to run the ball, get into 12. If you're going to do that, get into 13 and just run it down their throat. But if you want to have success in the pass game, I think 11 works a lot more versus 3 high.
Agreed, man. And like you said, you're talking about some 13. We haven't been good enough in the run blocking department, or at maybe reading the blocks that are open for us as far as the backfield goes. We've been just a little bit inconsistent and haven't necessarily been great shedding tackles. Christian Clark, James Simon, Gibson last week, they did, but they bounced off some tackles. So it's a good sign to see. And again, you keep throwing these guys out there in a platoon of 3 or 4 guys. When Trey Weisner comes back, you're going to have some healthy bodies, hopefully late into the season. And there's a lot of teams out there, and I'll just say they don't have the depth that Texas has on the defensive side of the football. And so just relax, everybody. We're gonna get a better performance on the offense this week. I think we'll clean up on some concepts, start doing things that work a little bit, more advantageous for us. I've got confidence in it. I agree with Charlie. A lot more 11 personnel against a 3 high defense. Take the quicks, man. Hit the quicks. Show that they're a threat. All of a sudden, running the football it's going to become slightly easier. You talk about these safeties just being able to play downhill, and they're just right now. There's really no threat in front of them because we're not hitting the quick stuff. And when we do run the ball, playing safety against our offense for the first 3 weeks hasn't been too difficult, man. Got to be able to hit that short stuff. Got to be able to run the football a little bit. It's going to be just a matter of time, guys. It's going to look a lot better. All right, I'm not sitting here screaming playoffs are inevitable, but this is Steve Sarkisian, a hell of an offensive mind, and Arch Manning, who the core issue to me is just a body clock that is way too sped up. Pat just said game reps, very vital for the young man. Hey, appreciate it as always, Josh Manning, for the super chat there. Thank you, my kind friend. Appreciate you being here. I think we see a lot better version of Texas football over the next 3 weeks compared to what we've seen the last 3 weeks. But again, 1 week is Sam Houston State. What we see in this game, we'll score a lot of points almost no matter what we do. The defense is going to turn them over. We'll get some short fields. Special teams is elite. Field position will be great. But again, clean up on pre-snap penalties. Let's check out that running back rotation. What we do at the tight end rotation, got a lot of question marks, man. And Sark wants to see a lot of different bodies, it sounds like. So maybe the rotations aren't shortened. Maybe they are. But any final words, final thoughts, Pack, before you let these people get out of here?
No, I think this is a really good game just for getting prepared. I was just looking at the schedule. I think OU is going to run the 3 high. Arkansas did last year.
Yep.
Georgia has a package, their mint 3 high stuff, where they'll line up in a mint front and they'll play 3 high. They use it almost exclusively against Tennessee. Last year, they did not run it against Texas. Against Texas, they mostly lived in a heads front, and they played their cover 7 split field, split safety coverage, and their Ripley's cover 3 that everyone knows about. But Florida is going to be a good test for how you're going to look against Georgia, because Ron Roberts does the exact same stuff. He calls cover 7, cover 5, but it's the same thing where they're going to play quarters and they're going to play like bracket to one side and they're going to play base quarters to the other. or they're going to play cover 0 to one side and play cover 4 to the other. And so over the next two games actually serve as pretty good insights into what you'll look like against probably the two best teams on your schedule in OU and Georgia. So that's something to look forward to, is you'll kind of know, okay, well, if we look good against Sam Houston, we look comfortable against the 3 high, feel somewhat comfortable against OU. And if you have success against Florida, you know, okay, there's a lot of stuff that Florida does, that Georgia does, that Texas is going to feel comfortable against, especially because I was watching Florida yesterday. They run the same fronts. They run the heads front. They run the mid front. They're going to run their flex or their over, their under fronts, depending on where the Y is or where the back is. Like, a lot of their coverage rules, a lot of the ways they play, a lot of the techniques they use are almost the exact same. This is what you'll see from a lot of these split safety people, especially now that the Saban system, which is Smart, Lanning, all those guys, have adopted a lot more Roberts principles. So these next two games serve as really, really good warm-up games almost for your two hardest games on the schedule.
That's really well said, man. You mentioned earlier Venables is going to throw chaos, at Arch Manning, probably to a level that, obviously that he hasn't seen, as far as mixing, matching coverages and just disguising and trying to present something that's not actually there. We've seen him turn, Texas football over every year that we've been around, unfortunately. Does a hell of a job calling football games and disguising defenses. It's going to be a tough test, but I agree with what you said. You'll see 3 high this weekend with Sam Houston State. You'll see a mix and multitude of different things when you go to the Swamp. What does Texas's offense look like? By the time it gets to Red River, it'll look different. I am just a matter of how different is it? Is it good enough to go in there, have some ball control, still be able to sustain drive? You got to score in the red zone, Pack. If we can't score in the red zone, man, those 2 games are going to be, it's going to be tough to win those, even though I do like the way our defense is going to match up. Honestly, the more we get into it with, obviously, Florida, they have their struggles with what DJ is going through right now. He's going through some of his own issues. And then, obviously, with Oklahoma, I really like the matchup, the way we match up our defensive line and their offensive line. And then our secondary, even with John Mateer, and knowing that he will take some chances in that ball game. He's going to have to move the football. So, all right, Pack, I appreciate you joining, guys. Everyone watching, thank you for watching Inside Texas. It means a lot. Y'all go like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, and then go tell a friend to do the same. All right. Thank you all for being here, and we'll catch you soon. Inside Texas will be back tomorrow.